Your first cruise can feel a little exciting and a little terrifying. Hello, I'm Gary Dean, your Blue Hat Bucket List traveler. I've traveled to over 70 countries on 34 cruises in the last 3.5 years. So I booked my first cruise, and then the anxiety starts. Am I going to like it? Am I going to get seasick? Is it going to be expensive? All these things start happening. The main one is, am I going to be seasick? That's why I made sure my first cruise was just 7 days. I have to test that. I've seen people, and it depends on the cruise or the ship even, because I've run into people since that never got seasick and all of a sudden did Alaska, got seasick. So sometimes there's open water or, just different waves or different ships. Sometimes where it is that you're on, where you are on the ship can affect totally your seasickness. So just really need to be on the ball with, booking. Now, to get over seasickness, my anxiety of that, I made sure that I had a cabin on my first cruise that was lower down on the ship and in the middle, right? Don't want to be on the end or the front or up high where there's more motion, right? So, just do some of that kind of research. Figure out, where's a good spot for you. If you're not sure, get on the phone, call the cruise line, work with one of the reps. They're free. Just make sure that you get the proper cabin. Also, like any hotel, you don't really want a cabin by the elevator, where everyone's going to be standing and talking and, maybe drinking at 3 a.m. There's a lot of bars on the ship. And as far as, was it going to be expensive? If you say no. It's not expensive. You've already paid for everything unless you add stuff on. You want to do more excursions, or you want to hit the gift shop, or you want to buy jewelry or get photos or drink a lot, eat fancy, then things are going to double quickly. So, the anxiety of that is real. You need to, have an eye or a budget, have an eye on your wallet and on your budget, know where you stand as far as that goes. And will I like it? Cruising's not for everybody. I know people have been on a cruise and never went back, and they didn't get seasick. They didn't care about the money. They just didn't like the one day somewhere, hours somewhere, really. You're one day in the port, but it's like, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. You got 8 hours, and time you get off and you get on, you got 6 or 7. And that just doesn't fit their lifestyle at all. They're more resort people. They like to go and spend a week in one place and really get to know it and do the culture and the food and just soak it all in and not be in a hurry, not be, have to get back to the ship, have to go, or going. If you do a Caribbean cruise, your first cruise, and Alaska's similar, I did Alaska my first cruise. If that's going to be your first cruise, you're going to be in a port every day. You're going to get no rest. You're going to be go. My first cruise, I took my mother with me. She was 81, and it was a lot. She was, at the end, we were done with the excursion. She did all of those, but at the end, she was just good to get to the buffet and back. And the buffet, unfortunately, was at the far end of the ship. So that was a far walk every time. But yeah, she got tired. It was tiring for her at that age. So that's, you need to figure out your ability to go. Now that I've cruised a bit, I love a cruise if I get on and the first day's a sea day, because the getting on is hectic, embarking. That's anxiety. Let's talk about anxiety when you're embarking. Do you got all the visas? Do you got all the paperwork? You get all these emails from the cruise lines now. Make sure all your paperwork's in order or you'll be refused boarding. Whose job is it to make sure I got all my papers? It's mine, but it'd be nice if you maybe helped. Is there somewhere I can put in my nationality and these cruise ports and find out if I need visas? NCL does have a site you can go to, but a lot of times it'll say, call us or you need to do this, and it turns out you don't if you're only staying 48 hours. My number one tip, first time cruise anxiety, book the cruise and then find a Facebook group for that cruise, or a cruise critic. I mostly do Facebook. Works for me. I've tried both. Facebook works for me. I find people to be very helpful. What do you think about this visa? What do you think about that port? What do you think about what to pack? All that stuff can be answered in there. First time cruise anxiety, a lot of the times it's, what do I pack? I'm just going to say, doesn't matter where you're going. You need clothes for when it's hot. You need clothes for when it's cold. And you need clothes for when it's wet. Okay? And you can do whatever combo of that you want, but have some of each. and do layers. I would suggest having a hoodie, mandatory, and a jacket, mandatory, poncho, rain poncho of some kind. Either a cheap one or a good one or a raincoat. And then for footwear, everything from flip-flops to runners. I don't do the boots. If it's that wet, then I'd have to think about it, but I've never needed anything other than flip-flops and runners myself. One thing I had anxiety about was, sleeping on a cruise ship, because I don't sleep good on airplanes. They're moving, right? I don't sleep good in moving cars or buses. Would I sleep good on a cruise ship? For me, when it's rough, I don't sleep good. If I'm being tossed around in the bed, this. I lived in the Philippines for 16 years with earthquakes, so when the bed's shaking, I'm starting to think there's something happening. So yeah, one thing I learned is, and then the next day get a nap. You sleep when you can sometimes if the weather's rough. Get the sleep when you can, and just remember you're on vacation, so it's okay to be a little tired. Just don't get so tired you're grumpy, right? I don't want to be grumpy. Will I like the food? That's another anxiety. How's the buffet going to be? How's the main dining? Am I going to like the main dining? And I don't do the main dining. I've done it a couple times in all these cruises. I don't go. A lot of times I'm solo. So I just find sitting alone or sitting with people I don't know to be uncomfortable. I prefer to sit by myself. At the buffet, if it's a morning rush and everybody's trying to get to an excursion and there's room at my table, people will sit there and I will not, I'm okay with it. Yeah, hey, I will have to do it too sometimes. If there's nowhere to put my food down and I got half an hour to eat and get on an excursion, then I'll sit with anybody. I'm not going to be picky either. But as far as the where I can eat and what works, the buffet has always worked for me. There's so many choices. Every night it's a different theme. A lot of times at lunch, even now, it's a different theme. So there's always different foods from around the world every day, rotating. Unless you're doing, you start getting into 10, 14 days, things are going to start to repeat. But on a 7-day cruise, it's going to mostly always be there'll be some same, but some different choices, right? Cruise anxiety on gambling. Am I going to gamble, right? I'm not a gambler, so I don't worry about that. But if you like to gamble, then you can. It's there, right? Cruise anxiety about the drink package. Did the math, how many drinks you got to drink in order for it to pay off, right? I don't drink, so I don't have that anxiety. But if I bought the coffee package, which I don't, because there's free coffee, but there is Starbucks coffee on this cruise line, then how many of those you need to drink a day to make that pay, right? You need to figure that out and do it. Disembarking was another stressful anxiety. How's it going to be getting off that ship, right? Getting on was rough. Embarkation can be a lot of people, a lot of standing around, a lot of slow lines. Patience is key. Know that their ship's not going to leave without you. They're doing the best they can with what they got. They're not in control of cruise terminal. They're in control of the cruise ship, not the terminal. The terminal is a lot of terminal people. So that's what they're dealing with. And then, okay, that was kind of rough getting on. How's it going to be getting off? And yeah, getting off it can be tough too. You don't know where to go. They just, your luggage is going to be, in the terminal. You need to get through customs. Immigration. Then you need to get your luggage. Then you need to get through customs. And then you need to find transport. To get rid of that anxiety, what I try to do is I try to book shuttle bus through the cruise line. So I just look for the signs saying, cruise ship shuttle bus that way, and I follow those signs, and I get on their bus and they take me to the airport. It saves me a lot of anxiety. So, but number one tip, if you got questions, you get into join one of those Facebook groups, start posting your questions. People will be glad to help you. Talk it over. One thing, if you booked your cruise for 2 years out, it's hard to start planning today. The other, I'll also say, excursions can be, get some anxiety about how the excursions are going to be. I book it through the cruise line, and I know that they're going to just want to keep me happy, and they do, and they get me off the ship and they get me back to the ship. And if I don't get back to the ship and I'm with them on an excursion, they will wait for me. Okay, if you want a lot of anxiety, then you just start wandering off the ship yourself, or booking outside tours. Then you can get some good anxiety that way. I don't do that. I stick with the herd, and I stick with the cruise line. The first cruise felt very uncertain, but it all went well. And after that, it's a routine. Every trip's pretty much the same as far as how it's going to go and what's going to happen. It's very structured. Cruise lines are professional. They do this every day.